for candidate introductions, and we're going to start with Mary Kay. She's got something to make.
Hi, my name is Dr. Mary Kay Bagayao, and this is what education looks like right now. It's a huge bundle of mixed up policies, the worst of which is Common Core. And there are all kinds of strings attached to Common Core. I've been fighting Common Core since the spring of 2012. And I'm a math education professor at Mercer University. I did a study of all the math standards, and I made a spreadsheet that shows everything from kindergarten to 8th grade. It compares our GPS standards with the Common Core standards. They are so far behind. They're 1 to 2 years behind. They're behind international standards. So in a couple of years, we're not going to be doing well on international tests. And then what are people going to say? Oh, it must be the teachers, it must be the parents, it must be the students. No, it's none of that. It's the standards. Some other parts, we have grant applications, race to the top. When I was a professor at St. Thomas University, I had a grant from the U.S. Department of Education and Technology. I know what it's like to work with the U.S. Department of Education on a grant, and I know why we shouldn't do that. So that's one piece I can try and figure out. Another piece is assessment. Because I have a doctorate in education, I know about assessment. I know about school law, about school finance. I've taken tests and been certified in those things. And the way we do assessment right now is not directly reporting our student scores, student achievement. Student achievement only has to count for a little bit over 50% of what our school report card shows. For the first time ever, we no longer know how our students are doing. The tests are different. We don't have the same standards, so we don't have the same tests. So we can't even gauge how far we've fallen.
About 3 minutes.
Yep,
Yeah.
Time up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, look over at me, guys, if I start waving at you a little bit. That would be kind of like the 10-second wrap it up. We also have a showtime at the Apollo-style hook, if you go over to. The next candidate is Nancy Jester.
Is this your phone?
Yeah, is it ringing?
No, I just put my stuff on it.
That one's a flash flood one.
Thank you all for coming. It's delightful to be here today, and I know you care deeply about the subject because you came out on such a terrible day. So thank you for that, and thanks to Greg and DeKalb for hosting this. So I'm Nancy Jester. I'm running for state school superintendent because I want to improve the educational lives of Georgia's children and provide a vastly increased value for the taxpayers. We spend a lot of money. It's the largest single item in the state budget. We spend in the top 10 in aggregate on education. Every state that borders us spends less per pupil than we do. Every state that borders us has a higher graduation rate than we do, and many metrics that outperform our students. We have plenty of money. It's not about the money. So anytime people start using the word invest and start taking you down that path, just know that. We spend in the top 10, we spend more per pupil than every state that borders us, but we're getting poor results. Why is that? Well, the money drives results, and our money is being misspent. Okay, it's being misallocated. That's why the tagline for my campaign is more classroom, less bureaucracy. We've had a 42% increase in student enrollment since from 2009 through, from 1992 through 2009. Correspondingly, we had a 74% increase in administrative costs. That's just not sustainable, and that's not what the taxpayers want for their money. They want it to go to the classroom, to the teachers, and so we have to implement what I call a financial integrity system. I'm going to give you two numbers. 0. 0. That is the number of financial integrity measurements the state of Georgia imposes on its school district. I'm going to give you another number, 20. That is the number of financial integrity measures the state of Texas uses to accredit their schools from a financial perspective and give true disclosure to the citizens and the taxpayers of their state. They range from everything from pupil size, from the amount of teachers per pupil. That's part of their financial integrity measurement that drives to the money to the classroom. So I'm getting the wave. So that's what I'm going to bring, financial integrity. I'm Nancy Jester. You can visit my website at nancyjester.com to learn more about me, and I'm I'm sure we'll talk more about those issues. Thank you.
Next candidate for state superintendent is Fitz Johnson. I think what I'm going to not do a wave, I'm going to do the tomahawk chop. Just go brave.
I'll try to keep under my 3 minutes. Thank you so much for braving the weather and coming out today. My name is Fitz Johnson, and I'm running for state superintendent because I believe that every child here in Georgia deserves a quality education, and it's on us. It's incumbent upon us as community leaders. It's upon us as parents, guardians, what have you. Whoever's responsible for that child's education needs to be involved. There's a couple things. My background, I went to the Citadel Military College, South Carolina. Spent 21 years in the military on active duty in the reserves. I have a law degree from the University of Kentucky College of Law. Spent 15 years running a business. So I've got both sides of the coin. I've been in the education world. I'm a sports nut, so I've coached kids for 30 years, coaching soccer, coaching wrestling, coaching football. Currently a community coach over at Wheeler High School. The things that we got to concentrate on for me is one is we got to make sure our legislature, our governor, our state board of education, and our state school superintendent are all on the same sheet of music. Let's get all of those on the same sheet of music so that our kids get to achieve more by making sure that we're all on the same sheet. And that involves all of us right in here, and it involves our community. And that's why it's that important. You'll see my disclosure, and yes, I said to them, you've loaned some money to your campaign. Yes, I have, because it is that important to me to get this job and get us going in the right direction. You can see my Achieve More plan is going to come out on my website on Monday afternoon, fifthjohnson.us. And again, thank you for coming out. I'll be here to answer questions.
The next candidate for state superintendent in Georgia is Matt Schultz, Bartow County. We probably drove the farthest through a hailstorm.
Well, I just appreciate having the opportunity to be here. Did brave the weather, but it's important. It's an important race, and I just thank you very much for that. You know, I'm in this race because this is just the next step for me. Most of my career has been about service. When I graduated from high school, I went into the Marine Corps and used my GI Bill money to go to West Georgia and get a degree in education. I taught high school for 3 years, government and economics and U.S. history, and coached football and basketball. I had an opportunity to go run a nonprofit, and that's why I left education as a teacher. But shortly after that, I served as a local school council member at the high school where I was a teacher at, and now I'm in my 3rd term on the school board in Bartow County. So what I can tell you, this is something I'm very passionate about. My father's a retired teacher and administrator. My wife is a teacher, and she does professional development training, teaching teachers all over the United States about how to be better. And we have 3 children in public school. My daughter is in high school, I have a son in middle school, and then we have a 5-year-old in kindergarten. So we understand how important this is. We live it every day in our house, and what I can tell you is we can do better. Georgia, I think we've made a lot of progress, but we can do better. And for me, the areas that I think are critical for us is we have to get our funding formula solved. Right, we can't sustain it currently where it's at. We have to do better in terms of making sure that we're preparing kids to be college and career ready. And I think we also have to make sure that the technology gains we've seen in the metro area, we expand that to our schools in rural Georgia too. So those are the things that I care about, and I look forward to talking with you more.
Oh, perfect. That's great. And the next candidate for state superintendent in Georgia is Kira Willis. Thanks for coming in today.
Good morning. How are you all? Good. I won't waste my 3 minutes asking again. Again, my name is Kira Willis. I'm also running for state school superintendent. I am a product of public school, an educator in public school, and a parent whose children attend public school. I stand for school choice. I believe that a child's educational prospects should not be limited to that child's zip code. I believe in restoring teacher and parent relations, and I think that's really important. What we've gotten because of a lot of things is we've got these fingers pointing at each other and blaming other people, and what we really need to do is understand that we're all here for our kids. And what can we do to work together, community, business people, teachers, administration, parents, all of us to come together to do what's best for our children. The QBE has been touched on, funding has been touched on. I don't think we should have to have a master's in finance to be able to understand our school funding. I think we need to streamline that so that the average Georgian can understand it, see exactly where their money is going, and appreciate it for what it is. Because right now it's a bit nebulous, and I'd like to see where the money exactly is going. I'm not a fan of Common Core. I believe in teaching children. I don't believe in teaching standards. I think we need to understand that everybody learns on different levels, and that our job as educators is to pull the children, push from the bottom and push from the top. Pull the students up who are loved and get them there, and then get the students who are already there and push them even farther. And I don't think that Common Core helps us with that. Thank you very much. I'm Kira Willis, KiraWillis.com.
And the final candidate, Richard Woods, and he was not able to make it. He had a previous commitment. He apologized. I've met him before. He's a very sincere man, and we're sorry that he can't be here. Roger Hines is going to speak for a couple minutes about him. Roger will not be participating in the Q&A forum, but I did want to give Richard the opportunity to have somebody speak on behalf of his campaign. So, Roger Hines. Another Wheeler guy. So Fitt's a Wheeler. I was Wheeler, and you.
See what a good teacher I was at Wheeler High School. Well, I didn't really teach him. He came along after I
Or
left.
corporal punishment.
Good run into a Cobb County guy. Folks, I live in Kennesaw, and I got to know Richard Woods in 2012 when he and I were competitors for this position. I ran for school superintendent in 2012. Got to know the man, loved him to death for two reasons. Number one, his character, and number two, experience. If I had to choose, and this is unrealistic, but if I had to choose between my kids being good or smart, I would choose good. So on the character side, A-okay. But experience, Richard worked in Irwin County for 22 years. He's been a curriculum director, classroom teacher, and coach. He has done all sorts of things in the field of education. Now, I'm a sucker for words, but these are not suckering words on his website. I just got to tell you what you ought to look at on Woods for Super. Less testing, more teaching. Richard is not a friend of Common Core, and I'm not either. Folks, I have followed that thing. It was not initiated by educators. It was initiated by governors and their chiefs of staff. Really, we got a need there that is so big. I hope you'll check out Contract with Georgia on Woods for Super. You will really find out Richard's heart there. And I wish that you would check out what he says about right time, right person, right experience. And a great guy. I got to know him so well. My wife got to know him too. He has spent some time with us as he has been campaigning in the north part of the state. He's at Augusta today, as was said, and he really regrets that he cannot be here. But please check the man out, Richard Woods for State School Superintendent. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Linda, for letting me have
Mrs. Chairman, I'm merely the moderator.
Yeah, okay. And thank you for letting me be here. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hines. What we're going to do is I'm going to, as a moderator, start it off with a question, and Margot Teed, our communications chair, is going to follow up with that, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A from the audience. When y'all ask a question, please make sure it's a question, not a Shakespearean monologue. We don't want any 3-minute grandstanding here, and there isn't a question. So try to engage in a little bit of brevity, and that goes for the candidates too. Y'all, we're going to give you a little bit of time. I'm not going to do we're not going to bang a gong or anything like that, but try to keep it brief. We want to get as many questions answered as possible, and that means y'all need to try to ask simpler questions that, not yes or no necessarily, but don't ask 3-part questions. So that's how we're going to start it off. And I'm going to talk first about the state of Georgia spends $20 billion a year. Hold on to your wallets, folks, because session starts on Monday. That means everybody will be under the gold dome, ready to spend all your hard-earned money. And 58% of that goes to education. Yet Georgia, we're not ranked last. I think we can thank Mississippi for bringing up the rear. But we spend a lot more money per capita on education, and we have worse outcomes than a lot of neighboring states that don't. So my question for the candidates is, what are we doing wrong? We're spending nearly $12 billion a year on education, plus getting federal grants. What are we doing wrong, and what is the first thing, if you're elected superintendent, you will do to turn the ship around? And we'll go ahead and start with Mary to answer that, and then we'll just go down. And then the next question will have Kira start off.
The first thing I would do is,
Talk to the group.
the standards are too low. And I went to all the House and Senate Education Subcommittee listening sessions except for 2. And I heard all kinds of things from superintendents, from school board members, and from the public. We have school districts that only have 160 days, and on top of that, 22 days are for testing. And they say, well, you know, test scores haven't gone down. And it makes you wonder, why is that test scores haven't gone down? It's because the test is different. It's on different standards. No matter what we do, no matter how much money we give or allocate for education, if we have low standards, we're never going to compete.
So you're basically saying you're going to enhance the standards. That would be your first step.
First step.
Okay, great. Nancy?
Well, money drives results, and we have plenty of money, and we can't, I'm going to stand up.
Okay.
We can't thank Mississippi, like you said, unfortunately, because they have a higher graduation rate and spend less per pupil together. So we can't thank them. But what we can do is institute financial integrity, and that's the model that is driving results in the states that are doing that. I'm not going to talk in platitudes. I'm not a single issue candidate. I don't support Common Core. I've written about it. That in the Marietta Daily Journal. You can read my article there. And I'm, you know, yeah, it's all of our children, it's community, etc. But that's not going to drive results. Platitudes won't get you there. Financial integrity and disclosure begins the journey to get there. Tennessee got serious about it in around 2010. And that's what we have to do in Georgia. We have to push the money to the classroom. We can't keep giving waivers to allow class size to go to infinity, essentially. We have to demand that our administrative costs be lowered. We can't let budgets be deceptive. In Texas, for instance, I'll leave you with this, and I'll let my fellow candidates address this. But in Texas, one of the financial integrity measurements they have every single month, they have to submit a report to the state of budget versus actual, okay? And that goes in. And then at the end of the year, they have to submit their yearly report. If there's more than a 3% variance, you get a report about it. You don't get your points for your financial integrity measurement, okay? This is important. Why? Because budgets are at best a weak suggestion of how to spend money in DeKalb, and certainly deceptive at worst. And that's not unique to DeKalb, okay? That's going on all over, and no one is holding them accountable because we don't have an owner's advocate as the state school superintendent, and that's what I am. I represent kids and taxpayers and what's in their best interest, driving the money to where it gets the best results. Thank you very much.
Fitz? Talking about budget, first thing you would do day one, superintendent, to improve the outcomes here.
Well, that's a large task when we talk about how we're going to spend our money. Now, we all know that the QBE formula needs to be modernized. I think that's one of the first things you see us tackle, and I mentioned it a little earlier. We say we're going to tackle the QBE. It sounds easy enough by going and getting some folks in the room, but it is a very large, complex, and difficult task to do. So we have to make sure that everybody's on board at the legislature side. We have to make sure the governor's office is on board, our Board of Education. So we have to make sure that we can all get in the same room and start to work on this and put these committees together. I think that's one of the first things that you really got to drill down and get right. The other thing now, it's not all about money. As some of our, you'll hear us say, it's not all about money. We've got to allow our school districts the innovation, digital learning. Let's let them use their natural born abilities to expand down at their districts and find different ways to teach our children. We talk about these kids are not many of them walk around without that that little phone that we call it. Let's use that technology to be innovative and move that forward. So those are the things that I think that I would tackle. So it's not all. I'm not going to say it's not all about money. We just got to make sure we get the QBE modernized, and then let's be innovative and find ways to make sure that our children are getting what they deserve. Matt Schultz.
Well, first, I think we have to be honest about what the state school superintendent can't do. When you think about per pupil spend and how much we spent on the whole state, I think in some ways it almost is irrelevant, because when you look at how performance is measured in the state of Georgia, it's at the county level. And so I think what we have to realize is we do not have a Georgia education problem. We have a problem with different counties throughout the state that is continually pulling the Georgia numbers down. So I think what we have to do is we have to look at the money that we're spending in these various counties and ask, why are these counties not successful? And then at the state level, we have to say, how can we change what we're doing to try to improve those areas? Because what I'll tell you, we have different counties who spend, $8,300 per student, who are doing very well. We just need to leave those folks alone and let them continue doing what they're doing. We have certain systems who are spending $14,000 per student and getting no performance. So I think what we have to do first and foremost is we have to acknowledge what the state school superintendent can't do, and really what we need is less legislative intervention, and in some ways the Department of Education needs to stop doing things and let counties go back and manage their own situations more effectively.
Kira Willis.
Gosh, everyone has had such wonderful first things.
You get to go
they-
first next time.
I know, well, I know, that kind of makes me nervous. But everyone has such wonderful first things that they would do. I think the one thing that is most important is that we instill trust back into our schools and our teachers and our parents. Schools have shut the parents out, and the parents have shut the schools out, and now there's this big wall where no one is really trusting anyone else. And again, the fingers are being pointed, and it's this person's fault and it's that person's fault. But you know whose fault it isn't? It isn't the kid's fault. It's not our children's fault. And my question is, before we do anything, the first question that we need to ask is this what's best for our children? Is this what's best for Georgia's children? And if it's not, if it's what's best for somebody else and not what's best for our kids, then we need to stop it right there. And I don't think that people don't want what's best for our kids.
Thank you, guys. That was great. That was that's exactly how we need to address all the questions. Efficient, quick, and to the point. Margot, as the communications vice chair here in DeKalb County.
Everybody look over here. I have to take a picture of it.
Is that your question?
That's my question. That's part of my question. No. I'm interested, all of us are interested in our own counties, basically, and so when I'm talking to you, it's because the issues that are, of course, important to me are right here. Number one, do you think that charter schools are an answer to pulling some of the money down on the local level and getting them from the bureaucrats and the administrators down into the classroom? And number two, are you in favor or against cell towers on school property?
We'll let Kira start off
Okay.
on that one.
I think that implementing school choice in and of itself, whether it be charter school, home school, community home schools, private school, whatever is best for that specific child is where we need to go. And that to me is school choice. We can start with public school choice and we can move from there. I think charters are a wonderful thing as long as the charters that you are writing to the state are being met with fidelity. That to me is very important. You can't have a charter and then not follow through with what you said you're going to do. I have never thought about cell towers on school property. I don't have a problem with it. I wouldn't think.
Matt?
Well, I think we don't have the luxury in Georgia anymore to pick and choose what kind of education we think is worthy. And, so I think we need more charter schools, we need more online opportunities for our students. So my approach is, ultimately what I would like to see us get to is the money follows the student. I think we're going to have a step process to get there. But that money should be whatever the FTE spend in that county is. That money should be available to parents so they can direct how their children will go to school. So I think we have to, at least for me anyway, that should be our end goal. But there's going to take some steps to get there. I think one of the things, and I was certainly a proponent of the charter amendment, but one of the things that fell a little bit deaf, I think, for some folks around the state is that they have no opportunities. There's no physical choice. There's no, they don't have another city system. So I think in those areas we have to do more to bring virtual options so that those parents can pull their kids out of that opportunity too. And that's going to take some cooperative work between the Department of Education and the private sector and the Department of Community Affairs, but we've got to get our technology infrastructure improved in those areas so real choice exists for everybody. And I think cell towers, I don't have a problem with that. That's one of those things that should be left to local school systems and schools to determine if that's appropriate for their communities.
Vince?
Yes, in answer to your question, I do believe in charter schools. I believe charter schools are another tool we can put in our kit bag, another choice that local districts can use. As long as, as long as the charter schools are living up to what their charter says and their promises that they're putting forward. And the other thing is we got to understand, we talked about trust. You know, we have to trust that when they put these things and they get forward, they get approved for their charters, that if the charter doesn't work, that we are able to close it down. It's not any different than, you know, than business. If you go out and you try something, if it doesn't work, you continue to beat your head against the wall. After a while, it starts to hurt, so we have to stop. So I do believe in the charter school. For cell towers, as long as there's not an interruption in student work, student achievement, I don't have a problem with cell towers. You got to understand, revenue from cell towers, again, is something that we can use, the individual districts can use as they see fit to, again, forward their costs to their students.
Nancy?
Thank you. So it is, just as that said, it's a tool in the toolkit. He's exactly right. I support educational freedom in all aspects, you know, whatever facet or option, whether it's a charter school, public school choice, private school, whatever. I support that because that's a conservative principle. I'm a principled Republican running, and those are the types of values that I'll bring to the office. Unlike, I guess, anybody else here, I have voted about this very issue on cell towers on schools. And so I'm on the record, I voted against it because that's what the community said. The community did not want the cell towers on the campuses. In DeKalb, we have a lot of small campuses, a lot of small pocket schools in neighborhoods. So you're essentially thwarting zoning rules and being able to put a cell tower right next to a resident who had lived in our community for 50 years right next to a school, and that's what they were going to look out and see when they open their door. So I certainly support the local area. You know, they should be able to decide exactly what they want. If they want cell towers, fine. But in the case of DeKalb, I voted against it because that's not what they wanted. And we don't have big tracts of land where we have our schools sitting on. So that's where I stand on that. But again, it's just one, the charter school is just one thing. We do need to simplify our funding formula, and folks have addressed that up here, and that will be another thing, and drive that money to the parents and let them make decisions, because they're the ultimate advocate for what's best for their child. So it's a tool. I will say this, sadly, we have not had enough of the state charter schools be approved. I'm a little bit disappointed in the new charter commission. We need to see more of those because kids need more options.
Thank you, Nancy. Mary Kay? Can y'all hear okay? Are we good? Okay. So we don't need to bring out a megaphone?
I have been interested in school of choice for the past 20 years. When I wrote my dissertation, my topic was school choice back in 1996. I've been following it since then. And when it first started out, we had companies like Motorola having, charter schools, and they had that for their employees. And it's really expanded. I love the idea of choice. In fact, we have the Educational Freedom Coalition, and one of the key principles is parents get to choose, because parents have the responsibility for their kids. They should be the ones to make the choices about where they go to school. I'm concernned about, when I look at the charter school movement where it is right now, I'm concerned about, it used to be businesses partnering to help educate, and now somehow it seems to be businesses profiting from education. And if you really want school choice, charter schools, as they are right now, and I have the legislation right here, HB 797, it is Common Core. It is there's no choice. You're really not getting a choice. You're going to another school, and it seems like you're getting a choice, but it's all Common Core. Why? Because according to HB 797, it says the department, quote, shall assist in securing federal and other institutional grant funds to establish the Charter School Commission. It's part of the federal takeover of education. It's part of the big Christmas-like mix-up that we're trying to separate so we can have true freedom.
All right, well, that ends the first part of the moderator question in DeKalb County. Oh, yeah, we're us. Margot, make the announcement. I don't want to be the bad guy in that.
We're passing the hat and the food, so if anybody's got any.
It was a
Like to
Democrat
put
party
in,
at first, free
the
food,
first
but
one.
now you gotta pay the bill. It's time. Actually, send the bill to your grandkids, because they'll be the ones paying for it. But anyway, we're gonna,
Have the guys move to the back door so people can see the
yeah,
camera.
hey guys, can y'all, try to not block as much, Make film from the outside. No, not you. I'm sorry. We're gonna need you going in. Yeah. There's a lot of. We're going to go ahead and open it up to questions. Does anybody have a question for the panel, Mr. Hanks?
Keith Hanks.
Remember, no Shakespearean monologue.
Shakespeare monologue. So I'm originally from Massachusetts, and I come from a small working class
Speak
town.
up a little bit.
Originally from Massachusetts, from a small working class town. We graduated 95% of our high school students. Now in Georgia, that would not be the norm. So my wife and I, at this point, we have no children. We may have children some days, and there's a lot of people in this room that are in that same situation. If we were to have children, they'd be entering the school system 6 to 7 years from today. With that in mind, what can be done to position Georgia 6 to 7 years from today that you could confidently see your child through Georgia public schools at the lowest common denominator? And the lowest common denominator are kids that are in the public schools that did not get into a charter school. How do we get that so the kids in public schools have a shot in working class communities at a 95% graduation rate?
Okay, that was a monologue, but complicated question. We'll go ahead and reverse the order again. Mary Kay, you can try to do a 30 to 45 second. It's a very complicated question, but I'll let you respond first.
Okay, graduation rates. We want to increase graduation rates in Georgia. How can we do it? Right now, the answer always seems to be with me, stop Common Core, because Common Core keeps us at one certain level, and maybe GPS was here, but now Common Core is down here. So if everyone has to be here, we have kids that are special needs. Their needs aren't getting met. They're not being instructed. They're not being tested where they need to be tested. Then we have kids who already know everything that's going to be on the test at the end of the year. I'm the school board of Fayette County. Most of our kids are high-achieving kids, and they're not being challenged with Common Core. So because our testing is all based on that, we don't have objective tests, and because we can't teach so that they will be challenged, we're going to have an increased dropout rate unless we do something. This is 2 years already, the second year of implementation. If we don't do something, it's just going to go down.
Will that get us to 95% graduation rate in working class communities?
If we meet their needs, they will not drop out because they're being instructed where they need to be instructed. Not just that 1% that's in the middle getting their needs met.
Nancy?
Again, money drives results. The money, how we spend it, drives results. The good news is we don't have to reinvent the wheel because there are places that are doing far better than we are. Mary Kay's right. It's not about Common Core. I don't like it. That's not going to drive results for anybody. It's not going to change anything. But how we spend our money will. We continue to subsidize failure, like in DeKalb County, here's your money, here's your check from the state, constantly, here's that, and we demand no result for that. We must stop that. We must just stop subsidizing failure. We have to reward performance, and we have to absolutely eliminate subsidizing failure. That will drive results. We have to eliminate subsidizing bad administrative choices, okay? And I talk a little bit about relevancy on my website, and that's another driver. We have just decimated the on-ramp into middle class for our kids, and that's what we're seeing is the symptom we're seeing is this low graduation rate because they're not seeing the relevance to staying in school and being able to live a middle class lifestyle. Okay, there's just no hope. They've lost hope. Education isn't relevant. So that's a component, but we have to hold the adults accountable for that, okay? And that is what we have to do by driving the money to the classroom and giving kids, parents and families choices, holding bureaucrats accountable. They're doing this in other states. They're doing it in Tennessee and Texas. They have over 87% graduation rate, calculated the exact same way. So they're getting serious. We've got to get serious, and they're spending less money to do it.
Fitz?
I will tell you, as a parent myself, first thing I would do, and my advice to you is, you stay on top of your child, time it is born, until the time it is ready to go to kindergarten. Everything, and make sure that your child is prepared when it reaches kindergarten. I can assure you, you have a 100% graduation rate if you stay on top of that child at the time of graduating. Now, is that realistic? For parents, it can be. Okay, it can be very difficult, but we don't all have parents. Okay, some of us have guardians. Some of us have aunts and uncles. Okay, so we've got to figure out a way how do I capture those folks? Okay, and I'm with you. I'm one of those ones that's I'm not on the high achieving end. I'm kind of middle of the road. I worked very hard to attain my education. My parents oversaw my education, were on me every day to make sure that I was getting my schoolwork. And so I try to translate that straight into our communities. Again, getting the parents and our guardians, and going over to the business community. And like I said, it's not all about money, but the business communities can get involved and form partnerships with these districts as well. And what's an example of that? Example is, over there in I don't go too long, very quickly is there are other things we got to understand. Not every child is going to want to go to college after they're done with high school. Okay, so I've got to have some alternatives for the children that don't want to go on to college, but I want to make sure that they've met these standards, rigorous standards that we're going to set, so that when they're ready to go out into the world to go to work or to go to tech school, they're prepared to do that. And again, we've got to have opportunities for them in high school so that they're ready to do that when they get out. So those are the things that I would tell you that I would try to work on to make sure that every child that we have, we'd 100%. Boy, if we can get to 95%, I tell you, we'd be cheering on them.
Matt?
Honestly, I think it'd be disingenuous if any of us up here said, in a certain set period of time, we're going to get to 95%. I mean, I think that's an amazing goal. 100% should be the goal. But, the kind of school that you described is the kind of school that my kids go to. I have a daughter that's a freshman in high school. It's just a regular, good, public high school. My son's in a regular middle school, and I have a daughter, or my youngest daughter is in elementary school. But it's my wife and I's responsibility to make sure that those three kids graduate. We can't legislate that from Atlanta. We can't spend enough money to make that happen. And anybody that tells you otherwise they're just not being honest. But what I can tell you is we have to do more, and Fitz touched on this, to make sure that we're providing opportunities for kids. I mean, one of the things that we're doing in Bartow County is we just opened up a college and career academy. 25% of our kids are leaving our high schools. They're not going to go into the military. They're not going to go to a technical school. They're not going to go on to college. They're going out into the workplace with no marketable skill. We have to change that. And I think until we change that and have the opportunity to catch those kids that last time that we have them before they graduate high school, we have to send those kids out with a marketable skill. And I think, what we're not doing is we're not touching those kids who aren't interested. All they hear a lot of time is go to college, go to college, go to college. They have no intention of doing that, so they quit and go find a job. I think if we work with those kids, get them in a technical program that will allow them to have good employment when they leave high school, we'll retain those kids, and that will do more than anything to help our graduation rate go up.
Kira?
Okay, so we've heard, we've talked about the money, and I think your biggest question is how in a working class community can we afford that 95% graduation rate? And I think that actually it's not as hard as it seems. What we offer is school choice. What we do is take our career technology, agricultural engineering, and put those specialties in specific schools. Our schools are jacks of all trades, masters of none. Everybody learns the same thing. If we offer that school choice and have automotive at this school, engineering at this school, HVAC at this school, foods and nutrition at this school, then what we can do is afford our students the ability to leave high school with a certificated career. They leave, they go. What we've done, kids are saying, it's too hard. The military doesn't even take a GED anymore. We have got to allow these kids their high school diploma. We owe it to them. And giving them school choice and giving them opportunities to go to specialty schools, whatever they are, would be the best bet. And I think if we drive that interest and drive that passion, we can get that 95% graduation rate, because we're not expecting them all to go to university. We're expecting them to be productive citizens.
Is it realistic to expect that school choice can work with less than a 30-minute commute?
We've seen it done in Colorado, where there's a 6-mile sort of route that goes around, and it's almost like a MARTA. For rural schools, it is very tricky, but it can be done. Yes, it will cost some money, because buses cost money, but like you said, some parents can't take their children. However, I think the opportunity, just because it's a roadblock, doesn't mean that we need to met it out.
Just don't say MARTA in Cobb County.
Right, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead, Max.
I'm a parent in DeKalb with two kids in schools. I lost faith in the school system here in DeKalb, and both of them are currently at state-approved charter schools for the 3rd year. I'm grateful that amendment passed. We don't receive county property tax funds. So although we have achieved improvements, what I would like to know is, what would you do to reward the schools that do achieve and give them equitable funding?
Kara, we'll let you start off.
You are not receiving local schools, but you are receiving state funds. And again, I think that goes back to what Mary Kay said, is we need to partner with these businesses who are going to support these schools in the avenue in which they are going. I applaud you for being able to make that choice. I applaud you for being able to put your students first and get them where you think they need to be. And as a parent, that's our job. I don't know that we can put, that's a legislative issue. So, Matt pointed out that teachers have, the state school superintendent has a specific job, and it is to implement the policy that the legislature puts into place. So although we can be advocates for funding charter schools and nonprofit or even for-profit charter schools, unfortunately we don't have the ability to fund that money in there.
So just real quick, I want to go back to that last question, and this one, and it goes to yours also. We have to make sure that we don't lose local autonomy. There's a lot of these rules right now that are being proposed by the legislature that will take away local autonomy. I think we need to make sure in local communities, if they want a college and career academy, they have the ability to do that. If they want to set up those technical programs, they have the ability to do that. And with your situation, what I would say is we need a fair system. I'm glad that the charter amendment passed, because it was better than the alternative. But it's still, and I'm on a school board, but it gives school boards too much power to say no simply as a funding mechanism. And that's not fair. If we're going to judge schools on their performance, it needs to be an equal playing field. And we've got to start having that difficult conversation about changing it to the money follows the child, so that we can start to understand, if we do education this way for this amount of money, this is the results. But until we have equal funding for all of these different pathways, we're never going to be able to have a real debate on what success looks like.
Fitz. I'm sorry, is your name Fitz too? No. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, he had raised his hand. If you have a follow-up question.
Yeah, we're letting all the candidates answer each question. I know it's a little bit lengthy, but it's the most fair way. So we got 3 more answers.
I'll be brief. I follow Kira on that. We can't change that, but we can be advocates for you as we go, before the legislature and before the mayor's office and those types of things. I think I do applaud you also for making that choice. I think one of your rewards, while not monetary, it is the ability for the charter school to be more flexible in what they're doing to educate your children. I hope that you can you can feel that reward at least, while we work on trying to figure out how we can monetarily make sure that everybody's getting the same.
Nancy.
And well, thank you, by the way, for all the work you did to help pass the amendment. You're an amazing blogger and advocate for kids in your own right, and I appreciate that. Fixed funding, fixed funding, fixed funding. I mean, if we had true per pupil funding, this would not even be an issue. I talk about this on my website, so everybody can go there and see, and and what Matt said, and I think others have touched upon it, we do have to sit around the table and talk with the legislators and get a simplified funding formula where we do have true per pupil funding that is assigned to the child, and not this 19 different categories of funding over a 6-period of day, this very Byzantine schedule of funding that we have. It has to be simplified. That solves that problem for you, and that also will drive results. But what, I can't see the fact that, well, it's just on the legislature, though. I just want to make sure everybody knows that. You know me, you know my principles. I have stood for conservative principles. I'm on the record for doing that, even when it cost me personally. And that is important because the Department of Education has been absolutely, just absent, I think, on conservative principles and real leadership and conservative leadership at the top. So that's what you know you'll get from me, and that's the advocacy I'll take to the legislature and the governor on your behalf.
Mary Kay?
I like to read the legislation, so in preparation for this upcoming session, I read the legislation. It's found on the Educational Freedom Coalition website under legislation, and it has changed. It used to be that they will get this extra money in bonuses, and that language was crossed out, and now you know what it says? May. So that's something that, as a state school superintendent, we need to be able to know all the legislation, know what's going on with the race to the top and meeting federal requirements and having educational freedom and still being able to do that, and also staying on top of the legislation so that we know what we're required to do, what we can do, what we can't do, and try and influence the legislation.
Yes, sir, I know you've had one. 20 minutes.
I think we all agree you've all got some great ideas, but what I would like to know specifically, where has any of you taken on a significant challenge and took it from worst to first? Just give me one example of what you did different.
Good question.
Yeah,
you're first.
I saw what was going on in Fayette County Schools, and there was a person on the board for 12 years, and they always ran as a Republican. I decided to run as a Republican. They changed and they became a Democrat, so I ran in the Republican primary and then against them as a Democrat, so I had to run twice to get elected. We had a fiscal problem. We only had $800,000 in our reserve fund, and it was just unacceptable. So we came together, myself and another school board member who was a professor at Georgia Tech, and some of the other board members, and we fixed the problem. Now we have over a $15 million budget reserve. We had to make some tough decisions. We had to balance, the budget, and I won't say Fayette County was worst and now it's worse, because that wouldn't be true. But we did what we needed to do this year, and we got us back on the right track. I really wanted them to get out of Common Core, but I realized, even though our board voted to have higher level standards, we couldn't do that because it's illegal, because our superintendent said he doesn't look like orange, and he wasn't going to do that because of the testing. So I know what I can do, I know what I can't do as a board member. Local control is taken away from board members, so that's why I'm trying to get it back.
Cool, thanks. Nancy?
In the private sector, I worked as an actuarial consultant, as you know, and oftentimes, so I'm just going to address it from a private and then a public sector thing. I used to work on large trusts, some that had, over $1 billion, and oftentimes some of the clients that we had would come to us in terrible shape and out of compliance with governmental regulations. And so I used to call myself the garbage man, because I was routinely given those clients to get them back into the good graces of Uncle Sam from a compliance perspective. That's hard work. You're negotiating with the Department of Labor, with the IRS, and so on. That's a difficult job to do, but I'm happy to say I ushered many a client through that process, and that's a big success. That's a big financial success for that company as well. And then, of course, publicly, I documented and made public, and it was even cited in the Sachs investigation, over $54 million in deceptive budgeting practices that wore away the accumulated cash reserves of the third largest school district in our state. That touched everyone in the state, given that a large amount of your state tax dollars also come back to the CAB. And I was the first person to document to talk about it maybe.
Fitz?
Yeah, there's a, sitting here trying to think of worst to first, that's a difficult turnaround. And I look at some of my sports teams, I think, there were some teams I took from worst to first, and I think about a soccer team, I think, what? You finished last in that division, got moved up and finished in first. I know that's probably not what you want to hear. Then I was thinking about the,
Actually, something like that, if you can tell me specifically what you did.
oh, it's all about leadership. It's all about leadership. I had 18, under 16-year-old girls. You can imagine, and it's, but coming off of a season where we were just bad. I wasn't the coach that came in. I said, okay, look, hey, it's a new regime, so you set up. Here's how we're going to organize. Here's how we're going to motivate. Here's how we're going to be disciplined. And I tell them, look, you got 15 minutes at the beginning of practice. That's when we're going to do this. And you can do this all you want. Okay, all you want. And we're only going to go 90 minutes. Okay, so the rest of the time is mine, my assistant coaches. And then you have to deal with parents. We've all been, this soccer mom's problem. We've all dealt with parents. And that's a difficult thing because we kid about soccer moms, right? But soccer moms, they care. They're down there cheering their kid off, and if their kid's not playing, they'll come and say, hey, coach, what can you do better? And, you give them some lessons. Say, here's what you can do better. And it's the same thing that happens that we need to have more of in the classroom. This is what we can do better. So you have to organize this thing and have teamwork. You have to have leadership. You have to have discipline. And you're teaching. You're teaching these kids how to win. Some of them, you're teaching them just how to win. Okay? And so all of that comes together. And look, everybody likes winning. Okay? People get happy. People enjoy. You start winning, okay? And people start coming. Hey, that's good. How can we do some more of that? And then you need a couple more. First game you get 5 parents. Second game you get 10 parents. Next thing you know, you got all the parents showing up. Hey, who starts snack? Okay, we didn't have snack first. Now we got 3 team moms. Everybody wants to do snack, but that kind of momentum is what we need, and that's the kind of momentum we want to translate from what we're doing here and why we want to go lead this education here in Georgia. That's my worst to first story.
Matt? When I left teaching, I told you I went into a public nonprofit. It was basically our historic downtown development authority. Is what I was in charge of. I was the executive director and the leader of this organization. And essentially at this particular time, everything was shut down at 7 o'clock. We had to make some changes to make sure that we had more jobs coming in there. There were more opportunities for our folks in town to do different things. So we had a situation where a restaurant wanted to come in. It was a really nice restaurant, but they wanted to serve alcohol. And in this particular area of town, no restaurant had ever gotten approved to sell wine. And it was a huge, unpopular subject at the time. I took a very public stand that this is something that we had to do. And, it was we had 400 people in the city council room at that night and tried to decide what was going to happen. I gave a very impassioned plea, but we were able to get that passed. And what I'll tell you is, as uncomfortable as that was, it changed the whole complexion of that downtown area. You can go to Cartersville right now, under the bridge to Appalachian Grill if you've ever been there. It's an amazing restaurant. And that one restaurant allowed for other boutique shops and different things to open up down there. And that fight created jobs, opportunities. We have museums now. Things are staying open much later at night, and it really helped change the local economy within that area. So I think the lesson is, you have to fight really hard, whether something's popular or not popular. And if you do that, most often, you're going to preserve your integrity, and the right thing will happen.
Kira.
Hi, I can't see you, so you can stand up. Since we're talking about education, and I have been a teacher, I was an 18-year teacher, and I'm still in the schools now. What I believe in is slow and sustainable growth. And it's not possible really for the teachers to have that slow and sustainable growth if the rules keep getting changed on them. So we started with quality core curriculum, and then we moved to GPS, and then we had the math 1, 2, 3, then the GPS. Now it's Common Core GPS, or GPS Common Core. And then we're moving to that. So I don't know that it's possible to go from worst to first when the rules keep changing. What we need is somebody who will stay in there, in that leadership position, who will drive instruction and who will help our teachers and our schools continue to improve. I get very suspicious when I see a 10-point, 15-point test increase when in school systems. We all know that that's not real. It's a fantasy, and we've got people going to court because of that fantasy. So when we talk about slow and sustainable growth, if I see graduation rates going up 15%, that makes me very nervous because I don't think we're serving children. I think we're servicing people who want that graduation rate to look good so that they look good. 2%? Perfect. Sign me up for 2% a year any day.
I know some people drove in from Gwinnett and wanted to welcome y'all to the meeting. Some folks from Cherokee, Amina and Alex. Amina, did you have a question?
Yes, I did have a question about graduation rates. With regard to graduation rates, I live in Cherokee County.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry.
So I just got to project
Okay.
through.
Thank you. I live in Cherokee County, and I think graduation rates are a bit of an issue. I think our graduation rates would be higher if we did include GED students or students who did graduate from high school after 5 years, but they are actually considered dropouts. If we are trying to reward performance, shouldn't we include them in the numbers?
Kira?
Yes. Yes, we should. The GED is, it's a graduate equivalent diploma. You know, although the military doesn't accept it, you know who does is technical institutes. In fact, Linear Tech offers a GED class, so when you pass it, you can go to Linear Tech. So I'm not sure, I don't understand that. I don't think a GED is a walk of shame. I don't. I think it gets the child where he or she needs to be quicker and faster, and they're done. And they leave with a high school diploma. I also believe, and I know you as a high school student, I believe in the D. I don't know, does anybody remember the D here in Georgia? I do. We have D's, and you know, so you've got a child, if the passing is 70, and the child gets a 69.4, they fail. So that doesn't make any sense to me. We're like 0.6 away from passing. But grading and integrity, we need to make sure that teachers are and keep their grades with integrity. So I had to add that in. I don't know if that was popular or not, but.
Matt?
You know, the graduation rate thing is, it drives me crazy, just to be honest with you, because it's measured so many different ways across the country, and it's very difficult to know how you stack up against one state to the other. It's the same thing with SAT scores. You know, you hear all this time Georgia's, you know, in the 40s and SAT scores, but nobody bothers to talk about participation rate. You know, Georgia has one of the highest participation rates in SAT around the country, and if you factor in our participation rate, you know, we go from 37 to 11 in performance. So what I'll tell you is, I think a lot of times we get too wrapped up on trying to have these little metrics. What I would rather us do, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with the GED, I'll just be honest with you, part of it. But what I would like to make sure is if we have students graduating within one semester of their class, I think that should certainly be counted. A lot of our folks get in trouble that way. You know, one of the things that we've done in our community to be successful with graduation rate is credit recovery. You know, I think, you know, we tried graduation coaches and different things, but working with students to do credit recovery, and we had to change some of our policies to say, you know what, you don't need to take that 5th PE class. We're going to let you go pick up that math you blew off when you were a freshman, so that kid has a chance to graduate on time. And you know, the biggest thing is we have to look at it kid by kid, student by student, and make sure that we're putting them in the best position to be successful. And I still think a big part of that is going to be making sure that we identify those kids who need to graduate our high schools with a technical skill. We can do more to retain students that way than I think any other action that we can take outside of maybe continuing to invest in online opportunities, especially credit recovery.
In answer to your question, yes and yes. I think the GED, we should be able to include 5 years of graduation. And I echo your sentiments on, I get so frustrated when I hear about where we are as far as graduation rates. We all want to do better on graduation rates. We consistently or constantly are looking over our shoulder when we don't even know if we're measuring our graduation rates with Tennessee's graduation rates, with California's graduation rates. You know, if we're not comparing apples to apples, this doesn't matter. What we have to do is concentrate on what we're doing here, right here in the state of Georgia, and making sure that we are reaching down to those children and making sure individually they are reaching their potential and reaching the standards in Georgia for high school enrollment. That's at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at.
Nancy?
Thank you. Well, I'm sort of surprised by my fellow candidates' answers here because we are comparing apples to apples. We now use a new federally mandated measurement for a 4-year cohort. So they don't calculate it in different ways in different states. It is exactly the same way we measure it. And it is pretty much, as right now, it is the only statistic we have where we can really compare apples to apples. So that's why it's illustrative. And I'm not going to give you any excuses. I'm not going to wring my hands and say, well, you know, I get upset when we talk about it. I want to talk about it, okay? Because when we weren't talking about it, we were telling everybody we had 80% graduation rates, and we didn't. We had a 67% graduation rate, okay? So this is a problem. This is a very important statistic, and it is the only one we have right now that really shows us who's getting it done and who isn't. Because, you know, the CRCT, that's not nationally normed. We can't compare. That's an apples to bananas, comparison there. So we can't do that. This is very important, and it speaks to how we have failed. We have failed to make education relevant, okay? And we have failed to even get, you know, kids to stay in school till they graduate. They do calculate a nationally normed 5-year cohort graduation rate, but we're in the same boat there, okay? So, you know, you can take your pick. I use the 4-year cohort rate because I think we ought to be able to do that, okay? And I'm not an excuse maker. I will not make an excuse. I will say that over and over, and I'm really surprised that folks here don't know that that is a nationally normed apples-to-apples comparison, okay? I know that, and I won't run away from that. Thank you.
Mary Kay?
I was about to say that, and something a little bit different too. What we're doing in the state of Georgia, it seems like it's coming from the State Department of Education. It's really passed through from U.S. All the shots are being called by U.S. Department of Ed. So that needs to change, and including how we calculate graduation rates. I'm not saying we should hide from anything about graduation rates. My dad taught GED for many years, and GED is great. You know, people really want to just get it done, and that's a great thing. But we really need to look at our state. What does our state want to do? Because that graduation rate, it's in this whole convoluted student achievement school report card that, again, does not directly measure student achievement. So all of that, we don't have any, I mean, you gotta know if you're gonna start doing something, what you can and cannot do. It's all controlled by USDOE. It's not the way it should be.